Hello, 889 The Bridge. This is Evan Ott, and today's special guest is freshman at University of Washington, Grant Cunningham. A little bit about him. He is a pitcher for the Huskies baseball team, and his past accomplishments for high school are first team All-Metro, All-State team, and over the course of his senior year, he had a 1.1 ERA tallying over 100 innings pitched. So, Grant, I want to start off with how you were able to be so successful throughout high school career.
Well, I just want to thank you for first off having me here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Very appreciative of that. You reaching out was really awesome to kind of, talk to you and stuff and catch back up. So this has been great so far. For me, what was the main thing of my success in high school was just hard work. I think, that's kind of what has gotten me to the point of where I am. Starting off at freshman year, I necessarily wasn't the greatest. I did make varsity as a freshman, but that was more so for my hitting ability. I played third base, and kind of that was my whole thing. When I was much of a pitcher, but it wasn't. I didn't play much my freshman year. I was on varsity, but I didn't get a ton of innings.
How hard you
Velo wise, that's kind of how I kind of tracked my progress throughout high school was my velo as a pitcher. And my freshman year, I was probably low to mid sevens. I did a perfect game event heading into my sophomore year, and I was sitting like mid sevens, and I topped an 80. So I wasn't the most physical. I was a big kid. I was around like 6'1", 6'2", already as like a freshman, but I wasn't physical. I wasn't really getting after it in the weight room early on because just that's freshman year. Hadn't really established that, but the biggest thing for me that kind of propelled me to have a successful junior year was honestly getting shut down my sophomore year because with COVID and all that stuff, it was the only thing you could do was lift and play long toss. Those were kind of like the main two things because you got some social distancing and all that stuff in there. But just really focusing on getting better in the weight room, building up the arm strength and long toss. Those were kind of the main builders that kind of pushed me into having a successful junior year. And that was when I first kind of started to get on the radar of okay, this, I can probably do this pitching thing. This could be something. But I think just the biggest thing is, hard work and discipline. Discipline is, everyone says, oh, work hard, go out there and push it your hardest. But some days you're going to go out there and you're going to be like, this sucks. I don't want to do this today. But it's just that kind of sticking to that routine of, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to push it every single day, put the same amount of effort into it, and just being consistent. And that's kind of where I get the whole discipline thing from. So, but yeah, just pushing that. And then, heading into my senior year, junior year, I had built up a lot of strength, but I wasn't a quick mover, if that makes sense. So I had a lot of strength built up over quarantine and a lot of size, but I wasn't moving that weight quickly. I wasn't explosive. So a big thing that me and my trainers worked on heading to my senior year was being able to get explosive, work down the mound a little bit better. And that kind of threw me into those, upper eights more consistently, starting to hit into the low nines. And that's kind of what I'm transitioning into here at UW is, yes, build onto that strength, but also how can I move as quick as possible? So, yeah.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's high school. That's you had a great high school career. I mean, wow. I mean, you had a 1 ERA. I mean, over 100 innings. That's pretty hard to do. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've been to college. What's up?
And I think another part of being shut down was such a blessing in disguise because baseball had always been something in my life that was just kind of there and it was always kind of a part of me. And then having it taken away made me realize how much I love the sport, how much I need it in my life, and how much I needed to push to make sure that I make it to the next level. So putting that was kind of a good wake up call for me as well, kind of having the step back in COVID in my sophomore year.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
It sucked, but I'm grateful for that experience.
For sure. So you've been in college for about 3 months, probably, maybe 4 months. What would you say the biggest difference is from college baseball and high school baseball so far?
I think the biggest difference for me is load management. Um, we get pushed very hard here,
Mhm.
and that's just the reality of college sports. But the way we get pushed is so well thought out to where I feel a lot more rested every day when I go to play catch than I did when I was in high school. So, for example, our lifting schedule, we lift 3 days a week, where in high school I was lifting 6 days a week. And, like those 3 days are really hard. So it's like our hard days are extremely hard. It's like you're throwing a bullpen, you're playing catch, you're getting a lift in. Like it's all these things. It's super heavy. But then our off days, it's like you go out there, you warm up, you play catch, and you're done. And then you're rested for the next hard day, which is the lift, pen, all that stuff. So I think the management of the load is a lot better, where we're still getting in, an insane amount of work, but I feel a lot more well rested. And I think that's probably the biggest, difference that I've noticed so far.
Okay. Would you say the workouts are much harder than the workouts you had to do in high school? Would you say they're about the same?
Um, yeah, it's definitely harder. I think it requires a little bit more out of you. I mean, I pushed myself really hard in high school, so I was kind of, I had less of a wake up call as some people have when they get here. But it's still like it's still hard.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I think the other biggest difference, so that's kind of like weight room, tying back into the high school stuff. But the biggest thing that I've realized here on the field is that it moves really fast. And you've heard Kevin talk about it all the time of that transition heading into college. You're gonna, be like, oh, this is so, like I'm swimming, like I'm drowning, all this stuff. But I mean, I was like, I was always brushing it off, like, oh, I'll be fine. I work so hard right now, but like, when you've got three different things going on the field at once, and you need to make sure you're at the right place. Like when we're doing bunt defenses and they're hitting a fungo into the outfield and they're throwing it in. It's just all this stuff is going on. Like the first few weeks, I was just like, oh God, there's no way. There's like I'm not gonna be able to do this. But I mean, the biggest thing that I learned is everyone feels that. Like whether you're a super low ranked recruit coming in, if you're, a top 10 in the nation recruit coming in, everyone feels that speed adjustment. So but it's been awesome to kind of work through that and kind of face that, like work through that challenge. And kind of, things are starting to slow down, luckily a little bit, but it's awesome. So
I love it. Yeah. So enough about baseball for now. What would you say for everything about colleges, just in general? I mean, high school and college are so much different for baseball perspective. What's the difference in school and what's the difference in life like?
Um, so we live in the dorms. All the freshmen on the baseball team are in the dorms. And dorm life is it's crazy. It's quiet when you need it to be quiet, which is awesome. But then there's also like, you know, it's kind of it gets a little crowded. Also fun. Food, like kind of just like I find myself kind of slacking a little bit on that. There's a lot more access to stuff, because you have like markets that are designed for students that are right there that have candy and all this other stuff. But if I had to pick like my favorite thing from college, it's gonna be baseball. But I mean, I'd probably say biggest thing is the independence.
Yeah.
That's I'm really close to my family, and I live like 10 minutes away from campus. But I think just, I've only gone back home twice, and, I'm going to be going back for Thanksgiving, which is, I'm really looking forward to. But I'd say just independence and building your own schedule every day, keeping track of, stuff in your calendar, and not having just everything kind of like you're just going through the motions of the day. Like it's kind of you get to decide what you do at certain times, and it's not like you're in class from 7:45 to 2:40. You're like you've got class at 9 and you get out at 11, and then you've got another class at like one, and you kind of have all this time like in between where you can go do stuff. So I think that part of college is really interesting. But it's kind of like I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of it because we're a quarter school and I'm still within the first like 2 months, 3 months of this whole thing. So still trying to get completely adjusted, but I think I'm starting to get there.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it must be crazy going from high school to college, and I'm doing it next year, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
Final thing, if you were to give advice to someone who's a freshman in high school or an eighth grader, what would you say, like, especially for baseball purposes, what would you say, like, the biggest thing to focus on is?
Um, I think the biggest thing is to not get wrapped up in the whole recruiting process. I know it's with baseball, it's shifting a lot younger. Like kids are, my brother who's in eighth grade is already like, he's kind of thinking about, oh, colleges, this year, that, when, he just figured out where he's going to go to high school.
Mhm.
So, I think just instead of falling in love with, you know, all the bells and whistles that Division 1 or Division 2, Division 3 baseball all have. Just fall in love with the game and really take advantage of the time of not having the stress of a lot of people like just like kind of all focused in on you. Just
Mhm.
take that time to develop in the weight room. To maybe spend more time in the weight room than you are at the field, but also fall in love with the field at the same time. So I mean, it's like it's a hard balance, but I'd say as soon as you can get in the weight room and start slowly building, don't go too crazy. It's just like a little bit goes a long way. But then also just fall in love with the game. Don't worry about all the recruiting stuff. It happens. If you just control what you can control, focus on being the best high school baseball player you can be, you'll get opportunities at the next level. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Grant, for joining us. It's awesome hearing about UW. I'm excited for your spring, and I hope you have a great career at UW and hopefully into pro ball. And thank you guys
Yeah,
for joining us on 88.9 The Bridge.